Josh Quintal and Michael J. Seese. Josh is head of product and marketing at Truffle, and Mike is the technical lead for Truffle Teams. Mike and Josh, welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you guys.
Likewise.
Yeah. What do you got for us?
Some very, very exciting stuff. Yes, as Tim mentioned, we are going to talk about teams today. So hello, everybody. I hope you're not tired of being thanked because I'm going to do it again. Thank you for being here. This is very exciting. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. As mentioned, we are going to talk about Truffle Teams today, so I will just dive right into it. We're going to talk about, as you see on screen, the what. What is Truffle Teams? We're going to talk about the why. Why do you want to use it? Why? Why? And finally, how? How do you actually use it? How is it going to help you out as well? So as Tim alluded to earlier, there are a lot of steps in the application lifecycle, and you can see it kind of illustrated here with this figure 8 graphic. It's kind of a signpost here. I'll tell you, you kind of start at the planning step, and we iterate through this over and over again while we're developing our application. And so Truffle's open source tooling handles the left-hand side of this life cycle very well. So, with the exclusion of planning, perhaps, coding, building, and testing. You're using Truffle to develop your smart contracts, to compile them, to debug them, to test them. You're using Ganache as your test network. And you're using Drizzle to build your front end. So we've got the left-hand side of this, the development portion of the application lifecycle on lockdown. But as Tim said, there are a lot of steps after that. So, as the ecosystem's been maturing and the applications within them have done so as well, more and more companies, organizations, developers are running into these operational needs you see on the right-hand side here. So needing a more robust release process, things like managing multiple deployments, operational needs such as monitoring your smart contracts as you see in there as well, needing a CI system to run your tests and your builds continuously. And so for those operational needs, that is exactly where Truffle Teams comes in, and we are once again very excited to be showing you this today. So to kind of go over the life cycle in just a little bit more depth before I hand it off to Seese to go actually into technical detail on the features, we start here at the building and testing stage. Of course, we want to make sure that we're not shipping any broken code, and we don't want to have to manually trigger a build every time we make a change. And so Truffle Teams has you covered here, and we have both an internal and external CI system that Mike's going to talk about here in a second. We also offer what we call development sandboxes, which are hosted versions of Ganache your whole team can share. I will not steal his thunder there either. Super powerful, quickest way to get an Ethereum test network up and running for your whole team. So after building and testing, we're going to want to release and deploy this somewhere. And so Truffle Teams has you covered there as well. I mentioned earlier the ability to manage multiple deployed instances. You can kind of see a few different cards here. We also offer a table view now. In the back here, you can kind of see a deployments detail view. What's really great about this is it actually ties into Truffle's debugger. If you've used our command line debugger, it's best in class. Great debugging experience. Well, now we offer that via a GUI. And my favorite part about it being that it's very much in context. So you see we're looking at the transactions of a deployment here. We've got some failed transactions. We click debug. We're good to go. It all makes sense mentally. You don't have to manage a large mental stack there. So once we've got our application deployed and released, it's time to start, monitoring the application and seeing how it's performing in the wild. And we've got you covered there as well. So on kind of the front window here, you see our dashboard screen shows you some additional visualizations like your transactions over time, the cost of your deployment, things like that you'll want to see at a glance. And then kind of in the back there, a feature that we've got coming out very soon that we'll delve more into in a minute is the contract manager. If you've used Remix, you're familiar with this pattern, but we generate we generate a UI here for you to interact with your contracts. But rather than having to run a bunch of calls each time you need to see your data, we also offer the decoded state tree over there on the right-hand side. You can see in this panel. So really cool, great for quick demos, integration tests, things of that nature. And so Truffle Teams, as the name implies, is not just for developers, it's for the whole team. And so you probably kind of got an idea of this as I was going through the life cycle. But of course, useful for developers. We're running your builds continuously. You've got the debugger accessible in there. But of course, also useful for system administrators, being able to see the status of your smart contracts in the wild at a glance, very useful. And of course, product managers and ops management, just to see the status of the whole application, easily check in on where it is in its development. And even, of course, if you're managing multiple deployments, dropping into a test environment and giving it a try to make sure everything is up to snuff. So Teams, great for the whole team, as implied. Teams by the numbers. Teams is growing fast. Currently, we've got a little over 2,000 users. We're processing around 500 builds weekly. So that's kind of just a little idea of where we're at now. And with all of that, I am going to hand it over to Mike Seese to go in a little more depth about each of those features that I talked about just a second ago.
Thanks, Josh. So with this growing number of users and builds, we're seeing Truffle Teams being used more and more every day. And with that, we have been adding features that you've been requesting every month, kind of in an explosive way. And as Josh mentioned, we have a continuous integration part where you commit to GitHub and we'll automatically do your build. That's a Truffle compile, Truffle test. We'll install all of your dependencies. We're looking at adding a configuration option for you to be able to add other steps like running a plugin or something like that down the road. But for now, if that's not enough for you, maybe you have an existing CI infrastructure for your projects already. Well, we have this thing called Bring Your Own CI or External CI, where any GitHub integrated CI platform like AppFair or Travis or Coveralls or any sort of linter, we will be able to process those and integrate those with the Truffle Teams application. So from there, you can make your deployments and monitor your deployments from there using your external CI that you already have configured. So once you have your builds ready to go, it's ready to deploy. And you can deploy to a slew of different networks. And this is super simple with our visual deployments. You pick a build, then you pick a network. This is any Ethereum mainnet or public test nets. Also Ganache sandboxes, which we'll talk about in a second. And then from there, you're ready off to the races. You're confirming transactions. We send these transactions all the way up through to your MetaMask account. So you get to sign them with your own MetaMask account. So we don't have to do any custodial of your private keys. You can change the gas price, gas limit if necessary. And if you're using Ganache sandboxes, then we have the option of not using MetaMask to make it go quicker.
Ooh, question here. So one thing I love about MetaMask is that they allow you to use your hardware wallets. I've got a Ledger. You can use a Trezor with it. Am I able to deploy using those as well?
Absolutely. So with being able to support MetaMask, you get hardware Trezor and Ledger support out of the box with Truffle Teams. So if you're looking to deploy to mainnet with your hardware wallet, you can use Truffle Teams today to do that. So that's an awesome feature. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you're deployed, you're ready to interact with your deployments. We've added this deployments detail page here where you can see your contracts, their addresses. You can have a quick thing to monitor their transactions. You can also go to the transactions tab where you see a list of all of your transactions for the entire deployment. And you can see that you can then click that debug button, we'll talk about in a second. You can also go to the console tab up here and see the console output when you ran the Truffle migrate. In case something didn't go as planned and you would like to debug that further, we're currently looking at making that accessible for in progress and failed deployments because that really helps you out like, oh, my deployment didn't happen. What went wrong? So we're adding that very shortly. And then when you have your deployments done, let's not forget about Ganache sandboxes, one of the awesome features of Truffle Teams. So as I mentioned, you can also deploy to a Ganache sandbox, not just public networks. This is a cloud-hosted Ganache CLI instance, so it works just like you would with any other Ganache instance. But we manage all of the fancy port forwarding and whatnot to make it so that it's shareable with your team. No, you don't have to do any weird sharing things. We'll handle that for you. You get forking support out of the box. You click a checkbox, and we'll show this later in the demo, and you're ready to start forking. And that includes archive data. So all forking sandboxes include past 128 blocks. You don't have that limit. We have archive data included. Well, what's really cool about these sandboxes is it gets built-in support for Truffle Teams across the application. That means when you do deployments, you don't have to sign each transaction if you don't want to. You click one of the generated accounts that Ganache will generate for you, and the deployment's done in a matter of minutes rather than waiting and confirming each transaction and doing that. You can monitor your transactions quickly and even debug them. So this lets you develop your application quicker in an environment that's ready for you to go to testnet or mainnet later down the road.
Nice. So that sounds really cool, and this is one of my favorite features too. But in an archive node, that's pretty resource intensive. How much dough do I have to fork over to use this?
Well, that's the best part, is that you can use every free account on Truffle Teams includes one sandbox. It doesn't matter if you're using it for forking or not. For free accounts, you always get that one sandbox. So kind of a steal for you to get a forking sandbox for free with archive data included. So check it out. There will be a place later at the presentation for you to get started quickly. And so now that you've deployed your contracts, now it's time to interact with them. This is a feature that's coming soon, very quickly, or in the next couple of weeks, called the Contract Manager. We show you your decoded contract state, and also we take your ABI and generate functions for you to easily use them and submit transactions with them. We'll be walking you through with this in our demo later. But what if something doesn't go right when you make your transaction? Well, that's where we have the visual debugger. This is hot off the press, just released. An announcement is probably coming on our Twitter very shortly, where you can actually use the Truffle debugger, which is an awesome CLI debugger. If you haven't used it, go check it out. In Truffle Teams, we take the power of the Truffle debugger and we give you a visual debugger where you can set breakpoints on the lines. You can step in, out of functions. You can see all of the variable states of as you're going through here. Like you can see here, you passed in token ID and you can see the value of token ID over here. You can see all your breakpoints easily here, and a list of all the different contracts that are interacted with this transaction. So even if your Truffle project imports functions from or contracts from Open Zeppelin or something like that, we'll show those as well so that you can easily step through that transaction. And then when you've done all of this, you're monitoring your deployment. And the dashboard is a great at-a-glance place for you to see the overall status of what's happening with your application. And I've got I simulated a lot of transactions on this one, but you can see where, okay, we have a steady rate of failed revert transactions, but maybe if this spiked up, we would want to know about that. The dashboard gives you an easy place to do that. And now let's go into the demo. I've got this fun little rock, paper, scissors application that I put together where Josh and I are going to play rock, paper, scissors with some die. So we've got some builds here. You can click on these builds, see the build details here. Won't go too much into these. We've already have these commits built for the interest of time. But then let's create a sandbox. Let me get more so I can show you the creation of a sandbox. Oh, wrong account. So when you come to your deployment sandbox, your development sandboxes, all you have to do is click this new sandbox. And if you click confirm, that's running the same thing as running Ganache CLI in the command line. But you can check this box to enable forking. You can click different networks that you'd like to fork from. You can even specify a block number you would like to fork from. You can even change the network ID or just keep it as the default, which would be 1. I already have a sandbox here ready to go where we have our application deployed. So we'll be using that. So once you have your sandbox, you're ready to deploy. We have two, if you click on the deployments here, we've got 2 views. You got the table view, and we also have a pipeline cards view where you can see it as you step to staging and then to production. Making deployments is as simple as clicking one of these deploy buttons or clicking the new deployment up here. Like I said, it's just as simple as picking a build, picking a network. If you're a mainnet, you would be ready to go, connect to your MetaMask and good to go. Or you can collect on that sandbox. You can specify the account here, or you can also specify MetaMask. If for some reason on your sandbox you'd still like to use your MetaMask, you definitely can still do that. You can create a deployment name. I'm not going to push the button from interest of time, but we'll go ahead and install all your dependencies, get everything ready, and actually do the Truffle compile and Truffle migrate for you during the deployment. So we've got these 2 deployments here, and you can see here on the deployments detail page, we've got our 2 contracts, their addresses. We can go ahead and say, okay, well, let's go ahead and play the game. So Josh, if you join me over, make sure you go to the before fix deployment and rock, paper, scissors, click on the manage tab. And we'll have some quick and easy functions for us to interact here. We can look at the state, but I don't want to cheat and see Josh's answer. But Josh, go ahead and click on the make move function here, and 0 is rock, 1 is paper, and 2 is scissors. So go ahead and let me know when you've made your move, and then I will make mine.
All right. Just confirmed.
Okay, great. So we're using a forked ganache sandbox. So when you make this move, it's actually staking 1 die for this process. We're interacting with the real die contract, but through ganache forking. But the transaction was super quick because we are using ganache, so you can iteratively use DeFi, any contracts that are out there on mainnet, rank B, etc. Ganache forking allows you to go quickly. I'm going to go ahead and try scissors. Go ahead and confirm your transaction here. All right, Josh, what did you put in? Did you put in scissors?
I put in paper, so not a great day for me.
I would have won, but I'm not seeing anything in the player 2 address here. So something must have went wrong. So good thing we've got the debugger here, so we can go ahead and debug this last transaction that I just put in here. So here we've got that visual debugger. We're going to go ahead and step into the function here. You can set breakpoints. So, you set one here to this player 1 turn here. Now, this was my move. I should have been player 2. And so if I step over, oh, I guess I must have gone into player 1. It's true. Oh, you know what it is? So at the end of the turn, I'm never re-changing the player 1. So we continuously change player 1 here. So, we can quickly change that. Now, little smoke and mirrors. I've already done the build here, but I would just commit this and we would do the build. We've got this other build here where we ensure player 2 can play, where I already have that here, where I added that logic. And so now, Josh, I already deployed this, but you would go through the same process of making a new deployment and going through that. But now we have this after fix one here. So let's go ahead to there and click the manage button there. And now you go ahead and make another move. And let's check your die before you do it. So I've got 101 die. And how much do you have?
I have 4 left.
Okay, 4 left. So it's 1 each to stake, and the winner gets both.
Nice. Confirmed.
All right.
Love how quick that is.
I'm going to go with paper here. All right, let's see. Oh, we tied. Did you vote paper?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right.
I banked on you. Yeah.
So the logic in the application is now that the stakes are doubled. So it looks like the function did work. We've got your address here. You did paper. I voted and I did paper, so that worked. But now the stakes are double, so go ahead and make another move. Whoever wins this one is going to take the 2 die from the last turn and the 2 die from this turn.
All right.
Okay, all right. We're going to go with paper again. Ha! I won. So if I check, I've got 103 die, and you should have 2 die, I think, left.
Yes, I do.
All right, so that worked. We could go ahead and monitor the transaction, but everything seemed to work as behaved. Looking at the dashboard here, we can add that deployment for that after fix to see our transactions here. And I made some transactions to test this last night, but you can see that, you know, we're monitoring these transactions. This is a new deployment, so not really much going on. But over time, this dashboard is going to fill in with your different successful and failed. And failed would be the transaction reverted. This gives you a quick way for you to find out, oh, there's a bug in my applications. Users are hitting this function and it keeps reverting for them, but I don't know it because it's on the blockchain. We can handle that for you. This works for not only sandbox networks. If you deploy your application to a testnet or mainnet, will monitors those as well. And again, you can access that monitoring by going to that deployment. And then you can either monitor a specific contract. So if we go to rock, paper, scissors and click monitor, you would see the transactions for just that contract. Or you can click transactions and see it for all of them. Yeah, that's the demo I have here. I'm not really fond of live demos, but that went really well.
I was really glad one of us actually beat the other one. I didn't even consider we could have ended
the same strategy as me. As people watch us play rock, paper, scissors for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, I still need to share my screen. All right, screen. So where are we going from here with Truffle Teams? We're focusing on this thing called workflow. We've been calling workflow stable. And what that really means is increasing the reliability and robustness is a major thing that we're trying to focus on. If you've been following Truffle Teams and Truffle Teams Twitter spectrum, you'll see me tweeting in the middle of the night trying to fix something that's gone wrong. We want to make sure that that's not happening anymore. We don't want you to have any interruptions with your service. And so we're really focusing on, you know, infrastructure, but also the application itself. There are bugs here and there. We're really focusing on making sure it's a pretty robust application. We're also seeing a lot of users signing up, and hopefully more from today. So we're looking at enhancing our scalability. We will have issues where sometimes everyone wants to build all at the same time, and you might just have to wait for your turn to make it happen, and we don't want that. So we're working on making sure that we can handle large amounts of scale here. And then there's like core workflow pieces where, you know, we've added a lot of different features, but there's just that one little thing that everyone still wants. Some of those are looking like, you know, adding more configuration options. So you run a Truffle Run plugin or something at the end of your build after you do your test. Or maybe you wanted to have some other deployment options. Maybe you want to specify which migration scripts you would like to run, etc. Also, one cool thing we're looking at adding very soon is built-in Etherscan contract verification. Imagine clicking that deploy button, confirming your transactions, and then it was just a check of a box, and now all of your contracts are verified on Etherscan without having to go through all the steps of doing that. We're also looking at adding mobile wallet integration. So, you know, we said we support MetaMask, which will support hardware wallets, but a lot of users still have mobile wallets that they would like to use, maybe Wallet Connect or Wallet Link. So we're looking at adding that for deployments and for the contract manager as well. And then currently debugging only works for for sandbox networks, but we're looking to add that for public networks as well. So if something transaction happens on a mainnet, you can be able to quickly and easily debug that through the debugger. So we're adding that very shortly too. And there's so much more, but this is what we're focusing on in the next like 3 to 6 months. But there are so many more features. So do be sure to follow us on Twitter at Truffle Teams. You can also follow Truffle Suite, where you receive all the latest and greatest stuff. But thanks, everyone. Thanks, Josh, for having that demo with me. It was kind of fun to play a cool little game.
Yes, definitely.
One thing is, with all of your TruffleCon, all TruffleCon attendees, free or not, you all received a month off of Truffle Teams Pro. You should have received an email with a coupon code. That email should also have instructions. If you have issues with that, I think you can hit up the concierge desk or on our Truffle community Slack. I know Shay and Liz have been messaging on the chat, so you can try Truffle Teams today. I'll put a link in the chat for you to go and get started, but then also check out that email for that coupon code.
Well, shoot, Josh, Seese, that was awesome. Thanks for coming on to show really what we've been working on for a long time. And I got to tell you, I really enjoyed just you guys playing that game together and having you both here on stage. So really happy you're able to show off some of our work and where we're going next. So Josh, Mike, thank you.